Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Longjumping in the AITA subreddit. The post is titled, "My ex dumped me in January after 9 years together because he didn't think I was wife material. He reached out wanting to talk because he needs to get something off his chest. I don't know why he's doing this or if I should meet him. I was with my ex, whom I will call Nate, because if I'm being honest, I was a Cassie. I don't want to go into too many details, but for the last 9 years, I lost myself to Nate. He was my world. Everything I did was for him. I helped him through depression, helped him get and keep his grades up, and even worked 2 jobs so he could focus on college when his parents disowned him for nearly 3 years because they disagreed with the major or college he chose. Bear in mind, I was also a college student. When his parents started talking to him again and began financially supporting him, we moved into a new apartment. Nate said he wanted me to quit my job because it was his turn to take care of me. For 16 months, everything was great. He spoiled me. Then I noticed he was more interested in his new friends, and at times he ignored me completely. Back in December, he did a 180 and love bombed me the entire month. He went out of his way to make Christmas magical for me. I honestly believed he was going to propose. On January 2nd, he made my favorite dinner and gave a speech about me being his first love, how I'd been there since high school. I kept thinking, any minute now, he's going to ask me to marry him. But no, he dumped me. As his speech went on, my world fell apart. As much as he tried to sugarcoat it, he basically said, "You were a good girlfriend, but that's what you'll always be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife or the mother of my children. You served your purpose, now I don't need you anymore. I need someone on my level. You're a gold digger. I'll give you 30 days to move out." I couldn't speak and he stared at me, waiting for a response. I think this lasted 20 minutes before he said he'd sleep in the guest room and left. Strangely, I didn't cry or get angry. I just ordered cardboard boxes online and went to bed. The next day, I waited for him to leave the apartment before I left my room. Then I called my boss and begged her to transfer me anywhere. She told me there wasn't anything available, but that if something opened up in my department, she'd consider me. I then reached out to everyone I knew who wasn't also Nate's friend, asking for a place to stay. My cousin invited me to stay in her spare room for as long as I needed and I could move in immediately. That was amazing. In the 4 days it took me to pack my stuff and move out, I didn't see or speak to Nate. I doubt he even noticed. I didn't trust myself at the time to ignore a "you up" text, so I blocked him and everyone close to him. I even changed my number and email to ensure he couldn't reach me. The first night at my cousin's was when everything hit me. I think I cried every night that first month. I honestly felt like shit. I replayed Nate's words over and over, feeling so low, like I was nothing. He only stayed with me because I was just there. Thankfully, my cousin sent for my mom, other cousins, and real friends to give me an intervention, which I badly needed. I believe I wouldn't have made it through that first month without my cousin. I'm still healing and waiting on that job transfer because I feel like being in the same city as Nate is holding me back. Having a place of my own would give me the fresh start I need. I thought by now I'd be a distant memory to Nate, but shockingly, he sent flowers to my job today for my birthday, which was on Sunday. Apparently, he also went to my parents' house looking for me. My mom admitted he's been there before, dropping off stuff and asking questions about me, but they told him to fuck off. The flowers came with a card saying, "Dear Cassie, happy belated birthday. I've been thinking about you nonstop for the last few months, especially with how everything ended. I need to get something off my chest, something that will haunt me for the rest of my life if I don't tell you face to face, but I have no way of contacting you. If possible, can we meet up in the near future? Nate." What could he want? What's so haunting he needs to say to my face? Everyone in my life is telling me to ignore him, but they hate him. I'm torn, but I can't lie. My curiosity is telling me to meet him to see what he wants. Has anyone been in my shoes or in Nate's? Update. We ended up meeting and no, I didn't go to him. I had told the receptionist at my work that if he came looking for me just to say I was out for the day. After he showed up once, I didn't want the drama of him around my job. So Nate just kept going to my usual places, like the grocery store I go to every Saturday evening or the park where I run on Sunday mornings, hoping he would eventually run into me, and he did. Yesterday, he was waiting at the coffee shop I go to after my morning run. When I saw him, I tried to turn around and leave, but he kept calling me. So I thought to myself, if everything went pear-shaped, a coffee shop would be safer than my walk home. so I just sat down and asked him what he wanted. He gave an apology that wasn't really an apology, you know the type with "I'm sorry but" and "pity me." He blamed his mental health, his job, his parents, his friends, everyone but himself. I took someone's advice from here and said, "Cut the crap. I already know everything." He genuinely looked shocked and stared at me for a second. I guess he thought his coworker had already told me everything, so he couldn't lie. Here's what really happened. He fell for a girl in his office. When he told me her name, I knew her immediately. I have met her a few times. He told me that for the last 2 years, he idolized her and he hated me because I was the one stopping them from being together. His coworker was too classy to be a side piece. When he broke up with me, he confessed to her that he was madly in love with her and that he ended a 9-year relationship to be with her. Well, here's where it gets funny. She doesn't even like him. She called him a piece of trash and told him that if he ever spoke to her outside of work, she'd report him to human resources. So I asked him, what does any of this have to do with me? We are over. I clearly cut ties. There's no reason for us to speak. He wants to try again and promised that we'd get married before the year ends, saying we belong together. I told him no, I'm nobody's second choice. He threw me away after 9 years and said some pretty cruel things to me, and now he thinks if he snaps his fingers, I'll come running back. He tried to beg and fake tears, bringing up the good times in our relationship. I told him to please leave me alone as he had already wasted too much of my time. I texted my cousin to meet me at the coffee shop. He kept saying nonsense and even suggested that if I went to couples counseling for a few months, he'd leave me alone. The 20 minutes it took for my cousin to arrive felt like 20 years. In the end, I just stopped listening and stood at the counter making small talk with the baristas until my cousin arrived. She told him to fuck off and said that if he tried to follow us, she'd call her brothers. He stayed in the coffee shop as far as I know, and we just went home. That's it. It's only been a day, but I feel like it's over and I'm free of him. Logical Challenge said, I wonder how much the fact that he ended a 9-year relationship affected the answer. It is an indicator that he might leave you in the future. As for calling him trash, I would definitely understand if she called him that after hearing how he ended his relationship and did not see anything wrong with it. Desolate Cat said, nobody mentioned this, but I really hate exes who cause a scene at their ex's workplace. This is very abusive. You know your ex would talk to you because if you cause a scene, your ex will very likely lose their job. This is even worse if the ex works in the service industry as a minimum wage worker. Lefty Mexican said, I was thinking the same. I have worked with a guy like that, too. I also had my foster brother's after-school program aide act this way. He assumed I was interested because I was nice to him, but really it was just normal interactions with a caregiver. The second story was made in the TIFU subreddit by a user named Meg74. The post is titled, I've been putting tampons in the wrong way for 10 years. I feel so embarrassed. I have had my period for more than 10 years now, and I just learned from a Reddit post of all places that you are not supposed to just shove the whole thing, applicator and all, up there and then leave it like that. I have a biochemistry degree. I have traveled the world, and yet somehow I never figured this one out. This is my first and probably last Reddit post because I cannot keep my horror at the fact that I've been keeping pieces of plastic in my vagina for 10 years inside, but I absolutely cannot fathom telling anyone I know about this. I have always thought that tampons were super uncomfortable and mostly used pads, but I love swimming and so I use tampons fairly frequently during the summer. As best as I can figure, I have used hundreds of tampons in this way. I have been scouring my brain, but I don't think that anyone ever told me about this, despite the multiple wildly uncomfortable health classes I had to take in grade school. The worst part is that I knew the plastic bit was called the applicator. I just figured that was because it made putting it in easier and you were just supposed to leave it in. Thank you Redditors for listening, and I can only hope that this horrifying blunder of mine will convince you to explain very clearly to your children how tampons work. Edit to answer some common questions. Yes, the whole thing fit up there. No, it probably didn't work great, but I only kept them in for a couple of hours at most while I went swimming, and I used them very infrequently, maybe a few times a year. There are lots of comments asking why I didn't read the instructions. Well, my mom always just had loose tampons lying around. I've bought my own maybe once or twice, but that was when I was much older. So by that point, I felt confident in my tampon using abilities and never read the instructions. I had health class and went to grade school in a fairly liberal public school district. Now I'm questioning what I thought thought was a fairly comprehensive health education. There are some comments asking if I can read or saying that I must not have gone to a good college and worked hard for my degree. Please don't be rude. In my experience, sometimes it's the people who are really smart at one thing that are super dumb at others. I want to thank the people who shared their own tampon blunders for helping me feel less alone in this embarrassing mistake. Another edit, people are also asking about how I could have had that much of a lack in curiosity about how it worked. I think when I was younger, I felt a lot of shame around my body and didn't want to think about it any more than absolutely necessary, and once I got older and more comfortable, I kind of thought I knew everything I needed to about tampons. Safe to say, said, before cell phones, when you went to the bathroom, you just read whatever you could find if you did not bring anything. As the only boy growing up with 4 girls, I have read many shampoo bottles, cleaning product labels, and tampon instruction manuals. A deleted user said, how did it never just slip out? The plastic makes it slippery. This third post was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named Dear Ferret. The post is titled, I don't want to give my late boyfriend's house to his parents. My boyfriend and I were together for 15 years. I was his senior in high school and we stayed together until a few months ago when he passed away due to bone cancer. I live in a traditional country where same-sex marriage is not legal but is not a major social issue. His parents kicked him out when he came out as gay at 17. My family took him in, helped him finish high school, and supported him as much as possible. I work in human resources and he worked in information technology. Once he started working, he earned good money and saved enough to purchase a house 10 years ago, paying the mortgage entirely by himself. 4 years ago, he received his diagnosis. He reduced his working hours to focus on his health, and I began contributing to the mortgage. It was a difficult battle, but cancer took him in March. After his passing, his family reappeared, expressing regret for not being part of his life. A month ago, they contacted me, demanding to know when I would hand over the house keys. Since same-sex marriage is not legally recognized here, they claimed they could inherit the house as his family. I informed them the house is legally mine. I purchased it from him a year into his cancer treatment, and I have been paying the mortgage ever since. They became upset, insisting the house should rightfully belong to them and that my boyfriend would have wanted it that way. This is partially true. He often spoke of giving them everything to reconcile, even buying the house, hoping they would live with him instead of renting. Despite his efforts, their relationship remained strained. I offered to sell them the house for the original purchase price, provided they repay the 4 years of mortgage payments I covered and assume the debt. They refused, calling me selfish and proposing to transfer the mortgage into their name without compensating me. I declined and the argument escalated. They threatened legal action, accusing me of scamming him, a baseless claim. For the past month, they have bombarded me with calls and texts, guilt-tripping me by saying I am betraying my boyfriend's wishes. While I know they cannot repay the money I invested, I am conflicted. Some friends suggest I give them the house and move on, but it feels unjust. I am inclined to keep it, even though I know my boyfriend would have handed it over. Their demands feel exploitative, and while I do not need the house, I refuse to surrender it under these terms. We never discussed what to do with the house after his death. Would I be wrong if I do not give it to them? Edit, thank you all for your kind words. I cried a lot reading most of the comments. Sorry if I can't keep up the pace and reply to everyone. I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Edit 2, this has blown up in ways I didn't even expect. Thank you all for your kind words. Just to add some information that seems necessary for some of you, I live in a country in Central America, but for safety reasons I will not disclose the name. Being LGBTQ is not illegal here, but same-sex marriage is simply not legal. Nothing more. We didn't live in the house, we lived in my apartment. That's why I don't need the house, but I just don't feel right giving it to his parents. Also, almost all his money went to pay medical bills. He didn't want me to spend my money on it, and buying the house was the best idea we came up with to satisfy both of us. The house is not large and is located in the suburbs. It is not worth as much as houses in other countries, around $90,000 US or a little more. He had such a kind heart, so I'm pretty sure that even if it was a lie, he would have given them the house the moment they acknowledged him as gay and told him they loved him. That's the reason why I'm having a hard time considering this. I can't answer all your comments, but I'm trying to read them all. Thank you for your support. 8 months later, OP gave us an update. First of all, thanks to all the people who replied and gave me support. I really appreciate it. When I posted the story, I was in a really bad place and everything was convoluted. I cannot tell you how hard it was for me to reach a decision. Many people advised me to take some time to think about it, but I especially want to thank user Ms. Saft. When I was logging out of Reddit back then, I saw their response and it stayed in my mind for almost a week. That helped me decide to take my time before making any decision regarding the house. So I decided to wait until I felt able to think clearly. It took me a few months. It was hard. His parents kept bothering me with calls and emails about the house. They even hired a lawyer to talk to me about it, but my own lawyer told them to back off, saying they had no legal standing if it went to court. In January, I finally felt ready to make a decision. I told them I was going to sell them the house for the original price my boyfriend bought it for. I would still lose some money, but it was the best course of action for me, and that was my final offer. They refused, saying I should be a better person and let them have the house for less. They did not even dare to call me his boyfriend, just a person. So I decided to put the house on the market. In February, they reached out again, asking if my proposal was still on the table. I would have liked to say no, but I know my boyfriend wanted them to live there, so I said yes, but they had to decide within a week. They accepted right away. I let my lawyer handle the sale because I did not want to see them anymore. I was surprised when my lawyer handed me a photo book of him as a child and preteen. It seemed to be their way of trying to acknowledge their son's life. That is the only thing I am grateful to them for. A few weeks ago was my boyfriend's 1-year memorial. They did not show up, so I can move on with my life without them bothering me anymore. My account was banned, said, so they lost their house and some money in the process. The lawyer already told them to back off. Why not just leave it at that? To this user, Liu1845 said, survivor's guilt and knowing my boyfriend wanted their acceptance more than anything else. They did what they could to honor his wishes without losing their investment. I would have told them, my boyfriend would have forgiven you if you had reversed disowning him, but you did not while he was alive. When he died, he had no parents. You cannot reconcile with the child you disowned after their death, so stop contacting me. You have no son to inherit from because you disowned him. Specialist Passage said, OP's partner's parents are just bad people. OP wasn't spineless, he stuck to his guns and made them buy the place instead of giving it to them outright. He wasn't living in it, so it wasn't a huge sacrifice for him. He gained peace of mind knowing that he honored his late partner's wishes, and he received a treasured photo album in return. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.